Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to learn about process states in operating system. Okay, so this is a very important topic for computer science students, beginners, even for job interviews. Okay, see, basically a process is basically a program in execution. Okay, when a process runs on a computer, it doesn't stay in one state. Okay, it goes through different states during its life cycle. Okay, so understanding these states is very important for CPU scheduling, multitasking and operating system design. Okay, so here is summary table line by line. First one is new. The process is just created and OS is setting up resources. Okay. Then ready. Process is waiting for CPU allocation. Then running. Process is actively executing instructions on CPU. Then waiting and block. Process is waiting for an event or IO operation. Then terminated exit. Process has finished execution. And OS freeze resources. Okay. See, here is process states. First one is new state. Okay, so the new state is the first state of a process. Okay, so process enters this state when it's just created. Okay, so the OS sets up necessary data structures and resources for the process. Example is like you click on open Microsoft Word, it is in the new state before it starts running. Okay, meaning, so this is the starting point of a process where it is being initialized. Okay, see, new state, when a process is created, it is in the new state. OS initialize data structures for the process. Example, you open Microsoft Word, it starts in the new state before it can run. See, okay. Then ready state. In the ready state, the process has all resources except CPU. It is waiting for the CPU scheduler to assign it CPU time. Multiple processes can be in the ready queue. Example, two background apps waiting for CPU time. See, after creation, a process moves to the ready state. Okay, so the here the process has all resources except the CPU. So it is waiting in a queue for the CPU scheduler to assign CPU time. Okay, so multiple processes can be in the ready queue at the same time. Example is like two background apps are waiting for the CPU time to run. Okay, a ready state means ready state is the waiting state for CPU allocation. So the process is ready to run but has to wait for its turn. Okay, then running state. When the CPU is allocated to a process, it enters the running state. The process executes its instructions. Example, your game or video actively running. See, in running state, when the CPU is allocated to the process, it moves to the running state. So in this state, the process executes its instructions on the CPU. Okay, example is like your game or video is actively running on the screen. Okay, running state means running state is the active execution state. Okay, where the process is doing work on the CPU. Okay, then waiting block state. If a process needs IO or an event, it goes into waiting state. Example, a program waiting to load a file or waiting for user input. See, basically Sometimes a process needs to wait for an event or IO operation. Okay, when this happens, it moves to the waiting or block state. Okay, example is like a program waiting for a file to load from the disk or waiting for user input. Okay, waiting block state means like waiting state is a pause state until the required event or input is completed. Okay, then terminated exit state. Once a process completes execution or is killed, it enters terminated state. OS then frees all the resources allocated to that process. Example, closing a program after using it means when a process finishes execution or is killed, it moves to the terminated state. Okay, so the OS then cleans up resources used by the process. Okay, example, closing a program after finishing work. Okay, means terminated exit state means terminated state is the end of the process life cycle. Okay, see, new state means this is the starting point of a process where it is being initialized. Okay, starting point of a process where it is being initialized. Initialize. Okay, then ready state. Ready state means a ready state is the waiting state for CPU allocation. The process is ready to run but has to wait for its turn. So ready state means waiting state. Okay, waiting state. Running state means active execution state. Okay, active execution state. Waiting block state means uh, waiting state is a pause state until the required event or input is completed. So basically waiting state means pause state. Okay, and the terminated exit state means end of the process life cycle. Okay, so terminated state is the end of the process life cycle. Okay, see, now see, process state transitions. First is new, then ready after the process is created. Then ready running means CPU scheduler assigns the CPU to the process. Then third is running waiting. Process waits for IO or an event. Okay. Then waiting ready. Event or IO completes. Process waits for CPU again. Then running ready. CPU time slice ends preemption. Process goes back to ready. Okay, then last one is running terminated, means process completes execution. Okay, so basically process cycle through these states until they finish execution. Okay, key points: process often cycle between ready, running, waiting, ready multiple times before completing. Understanding these states is important for CPU scheduling, multitasking, and OS design. OS manages transitions efficiently to maximize CPU utilization and system stability. See, basically, process often cycle between ready to running, running to waiting, waiting to ready multiple times. Okay, so OS manages transitions efficiently to ensure maximum CPU utilization and system stability. Okay, so understanding process states is essential for CPU scheduling algorithms and multitasking. Okay, okay. So understanding process states is critical for like CPU scheduling and multitasking. Okay, and the processes moves through different states multiple times before completing. Okay, ready to running, running to waiting, waiting to ready. Okay, process state transitions means um, new to ready after process creation. Ready to running, CPU scheduler assigns CPU. Then running to waiting. Process waits for IO or event. Waiting to ready. Event completes, process waits for CPU. Running to ready. CPU time slice ends preemption. Okay. Running to terminated. Process finish execution. Okay. So basically, most processes cycle multiple times between ready to running, running to waiting, waiting to ready. Okay, until they complete. Simple. So basically, new state is creation phase. Okay, when a process is just created, it is in the new state, and the OS sets up its process control block (PCB), allocates memory, stack, program counter, and like other resources. Okay, so this is the initialization phase where the process exists but has not received CPU time. Okay, then ready state means waiting for CPU. So after creation, a process moves to the ready state. Okay, so here is the process has all necessary resources except the CPU. The CPU scheduler decides like which process gets CPU next. Okay, so ready state is a queue for CPU allocation. The process is ready to run but must wait for its turn. Okay, then running state, basically active execution. Running state means active execution. When the CPU is allocated to the process, it moves to the running state. Okay, so the process executes its instructions directly on the CPU. Okay, so running state is the active execution state where the process is performing its task. Okay, then waiting block state means like pause for IO. Okay, sometimes like a process needs to wait for an event or IO operation, so it enters the waiting or block state until the event completes. Okay, so the waiting state is a pause state where the process cannot proceed until a until a required event happens. Okay. Then terminated exist state means end of life cycle. Once a process finishes execution or is killed, it enters the terminated state. Okay. So the OS cleans up all the resources used by the process. Okay, so terminated state is the end of the process life cycle. Okay, so basically process is a program in execution, unlike static program file. When the OS executes it, it becomes a dynamic entity. This is the process. Okay, so every process has its own state. Okay, and it interacts with the operating system scheduler and dispatcher. Okay, like think of a process as a living entity with a life cycle from creation to termination. Okay, thank you.